Good morning. Or for those of you who came in from the East Coast of the U.S., good middle of the night. I'm really pleased to be here with you today, and pleased that my slides are up. Thanks for that. I was told in preparation for today to be entertaining, to educate you, and to share some ideas to plant a seed for the rest of this meeting. So I'm going to endeavor to do so today. Would like to start, of course, by thanking Professor French for the opportunity to be here and for working with colleagues to put this meeting together, and also to thank the Minister and our lovely host. This is my first time here in Ireland, and it's certainly a wonderful place. I'm very pleased to be here and do look forward to coming back, I hope, many times again. I'm going to speak to you today about social marketing 2.0. Of course, I am not going to enter the debate of social marketing versus social media versus other labels. That's not the point of this talk. The point of this talk is to talk about social marketing, what we all know and believe to be social marketing, however exactly defined, but talk about this revolution of technology that we're all experiencing and how that is already changing the field of social marketing, how it can change it in the future. And I'll also speak briefly about the notion of place, because I believe within the social marketing mix, place is particularly changed as a result of new technology. And I'm going to present it today in a way, as I was asked to be entertaining as well. So just to review my own background, I am a professor and chair. I'm a recovering Fed, as we like to say, those of us who've been in the government, and delighted to be back in academia at the University of Florida. I also direct a center there called the Center for Digital Health and Wellness that does research and evaluation in the areas I'm about to speak about, and of course, as was mentioned, also recently establishing an organization, Digital Health Impact. I do want to start by acknowledging many people who've inspired and influenced today's talk, many of whom are here today. Without them, this certainly would not have been possible, and many of the ideas that you're going to hear are not necessarily new, but I hope repackaged in an interesting way based on terrific advice from many other people. Start with the numbers, of course. Speaking about social marketing 2.0 and what do we mean by 2.0 and what do we mean by technology, these are U.S. data from the Pew Internet and American Life organization, which shows upward trend lines of overall internet use. Our story really begins with the advent and popularity of the internet. Numbers like this are similar in many developed countries, a little lower, but similar trend lines in developing countries. You'll see in a few moments they're quite lower in some respects. But, you know, yes, many people are using the internet. I would argue that probably none of you would be here today without having used the internet, whether it was for your airplane tickets or for registering or for finding out about the program today. So it's essential in many of our lives, those of us fortunate enough to have access. In recent years, perhaps I think terribly exciting and interesting has been this significant growth of social media use, starting initially, if you see the top trend line, by younger people, but quickly followed by all of us older folks who realized that the young people were onto something interesting here and quickly jumped on board as well and continue to do so. That being said, there are big problems, big challenges with internet as a channel, primarily around broadband. We know that broadband use, meaning high-speed internet use from home, from a computer, still has significant divides. Not only certainly giant divides between the developed and developing world, but even within developed countries, there are significant differences by income and other challenges that show that this is still a barrier. There's still a huge challenge for us to use this channel, this platform for reaching many. But enter the potential of mobile, or mobile, as probably many of you say. It is exciting, and as you could see from these graphs from the UN, the numbers are quite astounding in terms of the level of access throughout the world of mobile technology, with 3G and the ability to transmit data in addition to voice growing very rapidly and disseminating and diffusing. This, I think, is quite interesting, which is the volume and growth of SMS messages or text messages in recent years. And the bar on the right represents an estimated 6 trillion SMS messages that were sent in 2010. 6 trillion messages. And those represent just teenage girls in the U.S., actually. But in reality, numbers are huge, and SMS is an incredible platform. I'll refer to a bit more in my talk, and many others as well. I believe over the course of this meeting, we'll be describing the potential, the great potential of SMS. And so, we've reached a point now of almost mobile ubiquity in much of the world. Mobile telephones are more common than toilets in India. Again, on the one hand, a very exciting opportunity with great potential for reaching people. On the other hand, also a reminder, an important reminder to all of us of the difficult health and sanitation and economic challenges faced by the people we work with and for and need to try to help. So which leads me to do a little bit of polling here, of course, because we are talking about new technology, and I need to know, based on who my audience is and for the sake of the other speakers, about how 1.0 are you or 2.0 are you, as I'm speaking about 2.0. So I'll define it in a minute, but I'd like to start by asking you to raise your hands if these are technologies you're presently using. Presently using things like this. Okay, for those whose hands are up, look around, you're all pretty 1.0. These are, we're pleased that you're using these, but these were pretty big in the first half of this decade, and we would encourage you to explore some alternatives. So let's say, show of hands for these. How many people on these? So this is pretty common in this room. I see many hands up, and this is quite an interesting phenomenon. Not only the ability to share information, but the ability to like information is really exciting. And the fact that when you like something, it's immediately shared with your network. It's the peer-to-peer engagement, the peer-to-peer information exchange, very powerful, influential tool. So moving on, how about smartphones or tablets in the room? People who use smartphones or tablets. I'm looking from about half the room, a little less than half the room. A growing population, smartphones becoming more common, becoming more affordable, particularly with open source platforms and things to that effect, have great potential to really change the dynamic, because where we can move beyond voice to much more interactive, participatory engagement. Moving on a bit, how about these tools? How many people are using these? Smaller number. I'd say we're down to a quarter, perhaps less of the room. They're using Firefox, which is a somewhat more advanced browser, and on the right is StumbleUpon. It's a sharing tool where you can find different information and tag it and put it out to your network where other people can get it and use it. A pretty interesting tool, I believe. How about my two favorite birds in social media? How many people in the room are using some of the? Okay, so a little less again. So on the left, your left is the Twitter bird, of course, for those of you who are tweeting or who use Twitter. And I would implore you all to use Twitter. I'm not being a BizStone, doesn't give me a plug for that or anything, or a kickback, but Twitter has a bit of a learning curve. It's not quite as easy as Facebook or intuitive as other social media tools, but once you've climbed that learning curve, it truly is an amazing tool that has terrific potential to share information. I would actually say that I get more scientific and professional information via Twitter than I do through any other source. In terms of updates on news, updates on reports and studies that come out, I get them more from other people whom I follow, their tweets, than I get from other sources. So I really think you're missing something. Of course, on the right is Angry Birds, which I also recommend, particularly for those long waits in the airport. And then here's a few more images. How about people who knows what these are or used either of these? The one on the left is Text to Baby, which I know you'll hear about a bit at this meeting, and a Text for Baby, and it's an SMS tool in the US that's used to send messages to pregnant women with due date specific messaging, and you'll hear more about it from others at this meeting. The one on the right is Frontline SMS Medic, which is an open source SMS tool that's being used in developing countries by Josh Nesbitt and his colleagues, an amazing, amazing resource. Frontline SMS Medic. I certainly encourage anybody who has an interest in that to take a look. And then last but not least, these images, how many folks here? The one on the left, of course, is a smart tag or a QR tag, and the one on the right is from Foursquare. So if you become a mayor in Foursquare, which is a location-based service, you get the crown. So this is location-based service is what I'm going to come back to near the end of my talk about this notion of place and location, how really it's changing quite a bit. So, and then last but not least for those in the room, how many of you are using a device like this? A few people? So the landline users are the last stalwarts of the 0.0 crowd, and we're still friends with you and we respect you, but we know that we know who you are. So defining what is 2.0. I want to define 2.0 in a few ways, and you've heard the expression no doubt, 2.0, 2.0, Web 2.0, similar terms like that, participatory web, participatory technologies, new media, social media, all somewhat synonymous in some respects, but one of the key aspects of this 2.0 premise is the notion of creating or co-creation. You know, Time magazine, with their decision a few years ago to put you on the cover, all of us on the cover, as the creators of content was a real milestone. I think decades from now we'll be looked back on that was certainly a seminal moment in this media shifting world of ours. Because we are co-creators. We have the ability now to publish ourselves and share our information. Sharing is a big part of 2.0. How many people are familiar with the videos, these viral videos on the screen here? If some of them you may be familiar with. The one on the bottom, Evolution of Dance, I don't know if you could see the number, has been viewed, when I copied this, by 169 million views. 169 million views of this video of this gentleman doing all kinds of exciting dances. So it has the ability to get information out to the masses. We have that now with technology that we have not had before. You can share your own messages. One of my recent favorite tweets is from the Bronx zoo cobra, which had escaped in New York. I don't know if you had heard, and then decided to take to Twitter and share its messages with the world, including encouraging us all to watch Dancing with the Stars in the U.S. because an actor named Ralph Macchio was appearing, who was in the movie Karate Kid and was pretty negative to the Cobra Kai dojo in that movie, and so the Bronx zoo cobra wanted to call our attention to that. So you do have the ability to share, perhaps most importantly, collaborate. Tim O'Reilly really focuses on this in his premise of Web 2.0 and this idea of building tools, building resources, building strategies that get better over time because of participation. Because the more people engage with it, the entire product, the entire experience improves. And that is perhaps the most important benefit of this approach. And the wisdom of crowds, and James Sawicki and others have recognized and noticed this idea that we are, as a collective, we are better, smarter, have better outcomes than we are as individuals. And we can tap into all of that with our social marketing work with 2.0. In the health realm, this is a definition provided for Health 2.0, and it's this notion of incorporating and using many of these strategies to improve health. Of course, this is sort of driven in the U.S., unfortunately, from a very medical model perspective. But I would endeavor to offer to you today a definition for social marketing 2.0, which as far as I could tell, hasn't been published before. It's this notion that I adapted from many accomplished people here and others, that the idea of a systematic application of interactive marketing principles and techniques that harness audience participation to deliver value, achieve specific behavioral goals for a social good. And really, it's this notion of harnessing audience participation that's key of 2.0. That is the secret sauce, if you will, of Web 2.0 that can allow us to really improve our work. If you think about why is this so important, just very simply, this is not that complex, of course, but a big part of it is increased and sustained reach. Facebook, I love this graphic of Facebook as a pill, because it almost is an addictive medicine for many people, who just spend enormous amounts of time on it, and for social reasons. It's a party, as they say. Facebook is the party. And the image on the left I like as well, because many of us are so connected to our devices and our information. We need them. We need the information they provide to us. And that creates an opportunity for us to be in their lives, in the people's lives we're working with and for, in a way we've never been able to before, to the extent we leverage these technologies. And we could be there in a deep way. Audience relevance and perceived interest has always been an enormous moderator to our ability to have effects. If people don't care about what we're talking about, if they're not interested in the topic, how interested are people in many of the issues we talk about? I mean, arthritis is a terrific example, a very important issue that affects millions of people, tens of millions of people. However, do they want to wake up in the morning and hear information about arthritis? Probably not. They want to manage it. They want to control it. But if we could speak to them in a way that allows them to engage and share their own worldly experiences, we can touch them in a more meaningful way. The image on the left is about some really innovative research people are doing now, looking at fMRI brain scans and health information and other messaging, showing that when you make information highly relevant to the individual, tailored information we sometimes say, it allows for a much deeper level of cognition, a more positive affect, and as you'll hear in the next speech after mine, about how we speak to people matters, and how we speak with people matters a great deal. Of course, the benefit, too, is scalability and affordability. In the past, even 5 years ago, when we talked about using new media in health promotion or in social marketing, the barrier was, oh my gosh, we can't do that, it's much too expensive. But it has become so much more affordable. In many cases, it's just using free tools and paying young people an inexpensive wage to help us do it. And then, of course, measurement and evaluation, in many cases, are built in or can be built in to our programs using new media. The ability to store and track large quantities of data and aggregate them and analyze them over time offers great potential. So those are some of the reasons for why. So to summarize the why, it's really all of these potential things, perhaps done correctly, done well, leading to more effective programs. It really is, it's a changing paradigm. It's a paradigm of where we were at a point in marketing where we were very product-centered. We develop and invest all our energy into creating products. We've really reached a point where it's customer relationship-centered marketing. That's certainly true of commercial marketing, and they're very aware of it in the commercial sector, that the relationships over time are critical, and we must be much more aware of that in social marketing as well. So if you were to sort of summarize everything I've said up until this point, it's really this notion that Dennis Adcock aptly has described as effective marketing is the right product in the right place at the right time at the right price. Now, the hard part, of course, is being in all of those places, making it right. So I want to spend a few moments discussing this notion of place, because place, I think, is the what I would call the neglected P in the social marketing media mix. And define the place, I'm sure you're all familiar with, often called distribution channels or networks, logistics, the way products reach a consumer. A common mistake in the notion of place is that it's where our company is or where our office is. That's not place. This room is not place in social marketing. Place is where we engage our customers, where they make their decisions. And I would argue that commercial marketing has had a significant advantage over social marketing, in particular because of their use of intermediaries and distribution channels and wholesalers and retailers who have specialization and specialty to bring products to market that we haven't had. But what is exciting is this notion of social media and new technology allows us to be doing direct-to-consumer engagement using a lot of the tips and strategies that are there for commercial marketers at a more customer-centered approach, lower cost and greater margin. So the notion is being where your customers are. That's the ideal place for social marketing. So if you think about that, I just want to sort of wrap with a few specific examples of what I think are exciting opportunities in this integrated space of social marketing and place and 2.0. And I want to start by just talking about data. There are enormous quantities of data in the social media streams. I mean, absolutely, the ability to mine and scrape data from social media is enormous, and we're just barely scratching the surface of it. I think, we have the potential to be, buried under this mine of data, but we have tools, and we're developing new tools to be able to critically use it. And I think it was said brilliantly, the notion of entering the conversation taking place in the customer's mind. We can do that because they are sharing their experiences with us more than they ever have before. And so just one very simple example, just one Facebook posting from a federal organization, the CDC, often creates dozens, if not hundreds, of responses. It includes likes, it includes people's comments added to the stream. And this is a rich, rich piece of audience data. This small little piece can tell you so many things about an audience. And if you, multiply this by the millions, if not billions of data points out there on any given topic, we truly are, all of us have both an obligation and an opportunity to be much more creative in our efforts to mine these data effectively. Secondly, the notion of data integration and innovation. Reid Hoffman, who's the CEO and creator of LinkedIn, has argued recently that he believes Web 3, or the next big innovation, is going to come from the massive data-driven innovation tools that will be created. And so this is both explicit data. So when we post any information on any site, when you upload a photo to Flickr or a video to YouTube, or you share a like on a comment, you're basically adding explicit data to the cloud of data. And of course, there are enormous quantities of implicit data as well that are always being stored and collected. And the tools and aggregators and resources, particularly in the health sphere, that can be built on these giant clouds of data is quite exciting. And helping drive this are tools like data.gov and OpenGov, and in many countries around the world, the increase in transparency of making machine-readable data available for mashups and for other clever applications and tools, I think, is incredibly exciting. I know it's sort of geek speak a bit here, but I think that what's happening in this space is quite amazing. And last but not least is this notion of geolocation. Place in your pocket is really what we're talking about here. And so there are tools, of course. How many people have tools like this on their phone? Anybody here? A few people? So the idea of, the one on the left is a clever one rolled out in the UK and other countries, which is a Starbucks app. That if you're a Starbucks person, if you prefer their coffee, when you're within a certain number of blocks of a Starbucks, your phone will vibrate and let you know that you can stop in for a quick fix nearby. So now imagine that for health. Imagine that for health, that you drive into the McDonald's drive-thru and you're dieting, and your phone vibrates and says, hey, if you're going to eat at McDonald's, get the apple dippers instead of the French fries. A little reminder to you. Those tools can exist, they do exist, and they can be potentially powerful. Why? Right place, right time. On the right is Foursquare, and the ability to share where we are, where we go, and people are being encouraged to share more and more. And again, knowing where people are has the opportunity for us to be in that place. And then the last example here is Google Latitude, which is a pretty neat tool. And there are many other innovative tools being introduced in this space. But this Google Latitude allows you to be told when your friends are nearby. So if you're in Manhattan, if you're in lower Manhattan, and you have a few friends in the vicinity, you'll be able to pull it up and say, hey, I wonder who's near me, who I might want to chat with or have a pint with. So there you go about that. And so that's truly my point, is just to give you a flavor, a high-level flavor to kick off this meeting of some of these exciting innovations, where we are. And to wrap, I just would say that, the two, to quote a pretty successful businessman who's sold billions of products, although not always for the greater good, but I think said very well that the two most important requirements for success are, first, being at the right place at the right time, and then second, doing something about it. And with that, I'll say thank you all so much.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Bernhardt. We have in fact, I was just getting a buzz in my pocket there. It was from my mother saying she's not on Facebook or YouTube, but please come and visit her sometime.
Oh, very good, very good.
Yeah. We have about 2 minutes for questions and answers, hopefully. Please stick to questions. Lots of us have lots of opinions on social marketing, but we're pretty tight for time. So if you could just raise your hand. We've won so far. And just as you get the mic, if you wouldn't mind introducing your name and who you work for, or your organization.
Chris Holmes from a company called Scintillate. Just really picking up on your point about your grandmother sending you a buzz in your pocket. Many of the people we're trying to reach, particularly in the health context, are not part of this process, either through social inequality or through age. I'd just be interested in Jay's perspective on that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a terrific point, an important point. Even in the absence of access, this technology is changing the world. I was just speaking with Mena from Egypt before I came up and describing how technology was used a bit in the recent activities in Egypt, and in which she was describing that even in neighborhoods where many people are illiterate, someone may have access with a phone or the ability to text and could get information and then share it within his or her network, their local network, even in the absence of possessing the technology themselves. And the way frontline SMS medic is being used in a lot of developing countries, for example, is with lay health advisors who are out in the field, who previously had to rely on paper documentation for tracking HIV-positive patients' medication use. And now they can use secure SMS as a means of transmitting data and knowing where to go to next. So, as the technology continues to proliferate, of course, we'll have, and more people have direct access, we can then intervene around issues including economic and social and others, and cultural in addition to health. But in the meantime, we already have the ability to use that as influentials within a hub.
Any more burning questions before we move on? Okay. Sorry, we've just one here. Is that a false start or? Okay, we'll take one more. You're making my job very easy here. There's only 2 questions.
My name's Mike Hope from Social Marketing Gateway. I was wondering if you can flip it and think about those that are engaged in these technologies and what you think about us intruding in their lives, in these worlds, and whether there's a danger there that we're going to really have people. Yeah,
I think it's the notion of are we intruding and must we be sensitive to the degree of intrusion. I think it's an important issue, of course, and the answer is we should be sensitive to it, right? And we need to be doing research, and that's the notion of opt-in networks versus opt-out networks to some degree. But I would also argue that our competitors, in many cases, meaning the people who are promoting unhealthy products or other types of approaches, won't be as ethical or savvy in terms of their desire to leverage these platforms. And so I think we have a need, an obligation to be present there, and perhaps not as in a sensitive, respectful, ethical way, but we shouldn't shy away from the need to be in every market and every platform where there's the potential for competition and negative messages as well. And with that, I'll say thank you all so much.
Okay, thank you very much.